Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us, and good afternoon to those joining us internationally as well. We're going to wait about 30 more seconds, I think, before we officially get started while some more people are joining the line. We've got just over 55 attendees right now. We're expecting maybe north of 100 today, which is great. But again, thank you very much for taking some time to join us today and learn about our new financial dashboards in MetricsFirst and really why they're important to your business. So joining us today, we've got our friends from GGA Partners, Derek Johnston and Martin Sankoff. Myself, Trevor Kublin from Jonas Club Software, and Mark Darling from Jonas Club Software, who is our product manager on the MetricsFirst platform. So aside from myself, we've got a lot of knowledge here on the line today, and we're excited to bring you some insights into how GGA uses some of these financial metrics in their own engagements and why they feel they're important, and also give you a first sneak peek and a real look at what the financial dashboards look like within MetricsFirst. I can tell you it's been a long time coming, and we're very excited to be here today to be showcasing these. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Everyone's going to remain muted throughout the session. If you have any questions, Q&A will be held at the end. While everyone will remain muted, we ask you to use the chat dialog on the right-hand side of your screen. Just throw your questions in there. Feel free to add questions throughout the session today. If we can get to them during the session, we will, but everything will be addressed at the end anyway. And the session is being recorded, so we will be making it available after the fact in a follow-up email that you'll be able to review and share with anybody else at your club who may have missed the opportunity to join us today. So just a little bit about Jonas Club Software first. At Jonas Club Software, we're a technology vendor, and our goal is really to be your single source technology vendor. So we try to offer technology solutions in a variety of different areas of your club, everything from back office to food and beverage, front of house, activities, fitness, and even member facing with mobile apps, websites. We want to be that single source vendor, and the way that we try to accomplish this is by offering a wide array of products and brands under the Jonas Club Software umbrella. Everything from back office management systems to websites and mobile solutions, and then value-added platforms, one of which is MetricsFirst, which is what we're here to discuss today. MetricsFirst really came into fruition about 4 or 5 years ago, and it started out as a kind of a small reporting platform with an overall goal to integrate to multiple systems. What has really happened in the course of the last year or two is we've focused a lot of our efforts on digging into financial data and making that much more accessible to individuals at clubs. We know that really understanding and accessing financial data is one of the most difficult things in the club industry because of, back office systems are vast. There's a lot to them, and pulling and really interpreting and understanding information from the GL is a difficult task. So we want to try and make that easy, and that's what we're here to talk about with MetricsFirst today. But with that, I want to give our friends at GGA Partners an opportunity to introduce themselves. So I'll ask Derek to take us through.
All right, thank you very much, Trevor, and nice to see everyone. It's great to see so many familiar names in the list of attendees. But for those of you that don't know our firm, GGA is a specialty management consulting firm. And quite frankly, we're really fortunate to work with many of the world's most successful private clubs. We originated in 1992 as a specialty practice at KPMG, and we've grown to serve over 3,000 clients all across North America and Europe. But since our days at KPMG, we've stayed true to our financial roots, providing comprehensive strategic planning services that are all supported and informed by prudent financial analysis, comprehensive business analytics, and financial modeling that ultimately yields effective financial strategies for our clients, as well as supporting their delivery of exceptional member experiences. But so for every new client we take on, with very few exceptions, we pull apart and put back together their detailed financial and operating performance in order to complete a comprehensive and comparative current state financial analysis. And the interesting thing is that process always yields really unique, interesting, and helpful trends and insights for our clients that help to shape the formulation of strategies and ultimately tactics, on the ground tactics. And so we've been working with the MetricsFirst team to integrate our approach to comparative financial analysis into the platform, so the MetricsFirst clients are able to see their financial performance in a way that's helpful and insightful to them in their day-to-day management roles at their club. And so before Mark takes you through all of the new MetricsFirst dashboards that are within the platform, my colleague Martin Zankoff is going to set the stage with a brief overview of the financial universe, if you will, for clubs. So with that, over to you, Martin.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Derek. And Trevor, if you don't mind just switching, thank you. So yeah, the theme of today was, basically how GMs and clubs in general can use financials more strategically, or to be more strategic. And of course, the first part of that is sort of understanding the role, everyone's role in the club, and how strategy, plays a part of that. And as everyone may have heard before, strategy typically happens in the boardroom, and that's where board members are focused on long-term financial strategy and goals, whereas the general manager is more focused on operations, budget, and essentially executing the budget set or approved by the board. And with that said, it almost sounds a little counterintuitive that the general manager could be strategic with the P&L statement and with the budget. But we believe more and more the role of the general manager, and we're seeing it firsthand, is expanding. And the more the general manager is able to deconstruct the spending in the budget and really understand the key drivers behind it, the more strategic insights the board can have to make those type of long-range decisions. A lot of the metrics for strategy are often things on the balance sheet that are things that are maybe checked once a year, once a quarter, that wouldn't change frequently. So our focus here in working with MetricsFirst was to bring to light some of the more insightful kind of drivers out of the P&L statement, out of the operations, which are typically seen sometimes as being a little bit passive from a board perspective. They might brush it off as, oh, it's just the operations, it's just the budget, when in fact the operating budget really represents the entire member experience, basically, in how that money is being spent. Members' needs and what they want out of the club is always evolving, and understanding where the money is being spent and how it can be sort of adjusted to drive more value for the members is always should be top of mind for the general manager. And that's really the kind of background idea we had in mind when thinking about how these dashboards could best be crafted. And Trevor, if you don't mind flipping the slide. Yeah, so as I mentioned, the role of the general manager is sort of, we're seeing it evolve and becoming more holistic, and not just understanding the budget or the P&L statement, but incorporating all aspects of the financial landscape. And so here we kind of have laid out all the financial statements. So the income statement, which is your revenues, your expenses, your profitability each year on your P&L, the cash flow statement from said operations, from investing activities, and from financing, as well as the balance sheet, which is more of at a point in time summarizing the position of the club. And just noting that these might be different for nonprofit clubs. It's statement of financial position, I believe statement of activities and functional expenses, and then the cash flow statement is similar. And the point here that we're getting at is that these are all sort of interconnected, and it wouldn't be prudent for the general manager to just have a hold of the operating budget. They have to have a command of sort of the entire financial perspective of the club and the ins and outs, to be able to not just execute their operating budget on an annual basis or at a moment in time, but provide the board with the insights they need and the information they need to make their own decisions. And at times they might not even know what they're looking for, and you might be able to use your in-depth understanding of the operations to sort of highlight or inform them of things that they might not be keeping their eye on if they're just looking at more high level, say, balance sheet metrics, or the really long-term vision of the club. And Trevor, if you don't mind just flipping a slide. And so in our experience working with clubs, with boards, with the GM, with the controller, the one thing that brings everyone together is cash at the end of the day. And we found that in all of our discussions and our reports, that's really what it comes down to, as far as breaking out the most critical components of the various financial statements. And obviously there is a cash flow financial statement that's dedicated to just that. But sometimes the way, let's say, initiation fees are structured or laid out for different clubs have sort of different implications depending on the club and the way it's structured. And so if there's one thing we would recommend to somebody trying to get a really in-depth understanding of the club, is to kind of do away with the traditional statements, just from the perspective of understanding the ins and outs of the club, and looking at the sources of cash, where they're coming from and where they're going. Because at the end of the day, if you're able to generate a net positive cash flow at the club, that means you have money to allocate to capital and ultimately reinvest back in the club. And it's important to understand that the knock-on effects of, for example, if you have an operating budget and you miss it by, say, $300,000 in a given year, even though the budget may not be something in the boardroom that they're focused on from an operating perspective, if they're $300,000 short in that year, that's that much less that's able to be allocated towards capital, towards debt service, and vice versa. If you have some initiation fees that you were expecting in that year and you didn't hit the membership sales targets, again, that's just a shortfall in cash that has to come from somewhere. And ultimately, the money in clubs is fungible in that you can even see it in the way clubs structure their annual dues. They call it capital dues, annual dues, and sometimes they're mixed in. And we don't want to get into the details of that, but ultimately it all comes down to the ins and outs of cash flow. And so the way we've sort of helped design these dashboards and keeping that in mind is really allowing the user to be able to break down the revenues and the expenses, and really be able to dig deep to allow them to sort of deconstruct where they come from and the key drivers behind each of them. And the really nice component of that is the membership side of it, which ultimately is usually a key driver to a lot of these sources of cash flow, i.e. being dues and initiation fees. And sort of having that background layer of membership in that same platform allows for some really insightful sort of layering or overlap between membership trends and then financials to sort of back that up. And Mark will get into that later. And so with that, I'll pass it on to Derek to go over some other topics on what went into our thinking for the dashboard.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. A great overview. And I would just say, something that we're seeing in high performing clubs, we're seeing the GM or COO and the controller and the CFO really forming a dynamic duo, if you will, from a financial performance, reporting, and communications perspective. So we do quite a bit of research in the private club space every year as a firm, and in collaboration with CMAA, with NCA, with CSCM, with CMAE, and really for club managers and controllers that are actively using and or pursuing financial dashboarding, really the top motivations are what are shown on screen here. And we can definitely attest to the fact that many are having great success with performance monitoring. So staying attuned to how you're performing against your targets, which is actually particularly helpful, as most GMs and controllers have goals and objectives that are tied to actual performance to budget. It really helps with early identification of issues, proactive communication of variances to board members and to finance committee members. So allowing GMs and controllers to get ahead of variance reporting, something that's really helpful. And certainly over the last few years through the pandemic and all of the changes and fluctuations that everybody's seen and had to deal with. Also actually catching issues early enough that you can actually address them. That's been incredibly helpful. Dashboards really, especially the way the dashboards are designed here, I'll get into what I think really make impactful dashboards. But actually being able to catch those issues early enough to address them is really helpful. And then ultimately providing data that assists with reforecasting. So, okay, shoot, we have an issue. What is causing that issue? What type of variance do we expect because of that issue? And what does the future look like? How is our year end going to play out? Being able to address that and communicate that in a really quick and timely way is really impactful from a performance perspective for general managers and controllers. So just wanted to share those top motivations. And then the last piece that we wanted to share before we pass it over to Mark to walk through the MetricsFirst Dashboards is really what makes up impactful dashboards. So in helping provide guidance and advice around the creation of the MetricsFirst financial dashboards, there were really two principles that we believe are incredibly helpful. They're high level, but incredibly helpful. And ultimately we focused on the first being a frame of reference and the second being click and drill functionality. So to effectively stay on top of financial performance and identify areas of concern or success, having a frame of reference is critical. So being able to see comparative analysis from month to month, year to year, variance to budget, all of that's really important. And at the same time, that really only allows you to answer the what. So what happened, not necessarily the why. And that's why one of the most impactful tools that these new financial dashboards help with is enabling that quick and easy investigation, or click and drill, if you will, which helps when trying to better understand and respond to why. What's happening? Why did that happen? And really that just allows GMs, controllers, and all other department managers that have access to the platform to more effectively triage issues and respond in a really timely fashion. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mark to take you through a demonstration of the new financial dashboards. Over to you, Mark.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Just bear with me for a sec so I can share my screen.
I've gone ahead and made you presenter now, Mark. You should be good.
Perfect. Thank you. I think my screen is being shared here.
It is, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so here we are, MetricsFirst. So let me close this out. Oh, get that out of the way. Here we are. So just before I dive into the financial dashboards, I just wanted to touch on the MetricsFirst background a little bit. Trevor mentioned it earlier, but I thought I'd just recap it quickly. When MetricsFirst first started, the main idea with the system was to take data from your various systems, whether it was Jonas, Jam, MetricsFirst website, 4Ts, T Times, Google Analytics, all of that, and bring it into one place where you can come in and get your reporting. And then we decided, we didn't shift, but we put more of a focus on membership reporting. And so that you could see things like member utilization, who's going to be at the club, give you opportunities to say hi to certain individuals for various reasons who are going to be here, identifying top spenders as well as members who might be at risk. And you can see here in membership, there's a ton of different dashboards and reports here. And so in working with clubs over the years, we got a lot of feedback about, the membership reporting is great, but we really want to also see, finalized revenue numbers compared to budget, expenses compared to budget, particularly payroll. And so we decided to work with the Jonas team to get access to that data. And I'll show you very quickly here, this dashboard team look a little busy. And what we got is essentially access to the trial balance and all the GL accounts. And then what we decided to do is work with the GGA partners to create some dashboards to bring that information together to help, like Derek mentioned and Martin mentioned, help you hone in on what departments are performing well versus not, where are you to budget, comparisons to last year, etc. A nice visual way, easy to digest and understand, and quickly see departments that are performing well, as well as some departments that might have some opportunities there. So I just clicked on revenue here. So we're on a revenue dashboard. You can see that we also have expenses. And these two dashboards really focus on previous month activity. Whereas we have a separate dashboard for this month's activity. And the reason why we separated those is because the analysis that you're doing for past months versus this month is slightly different. In previous months, you were doing full month comparisons, whereas in this month's activity, we're doing comparisons more to what's going on today or as of yesterday. So the analysis is slightly different. And so we'll see that here as I go through. So I'm on revenue, and one of the great things about the revenue about all the dashboards is that you can filter by company. So if you're a club that has multiple companies, that's no problem. You're not stuck with just your main company. You can choose which company you want to look at very easily. So I'll choose my company 1 here. Like I said, it defaults to it's past month's activity, so it defaults to the end as of the end of last month. But really, I can jump to any month I want here. So I just clicked on September. You can see the reports below are filtering by that month. I'll quickly jump over to October. And then I can also filter by department, which I won't do that just yet, because as I scroll down, you can see many of the reports already give you a breakout by department. And so this first report, monthly revenue by department, as I mouse over, you can get your revenue totals there, as well as percentages. And then on the right side, we have year-to-date totals. And you'll see that theme as we scroll down on the dashboard, monthly totals on the left, year-to-date totals on the right. So as I scroll down here, it starts to get a little bit more interesting. Now we're seeing our monthly totals compared to budget. We can see in blue our actuals for this year, orange is the budget, gray are previous years. And so I can see how we perform month to month. And then also on the right, I can quickly see how we're trending for the year compared to budget and compared to previous years. And so we can make it even more interesting by scrolling up here, whether I'm the general manager, a department manager or VP, or even some clubs have given some of their members on their finance committee access. You can click on a particular department, scroll down again, you can see we're filtered by food and beverage, and now we can do the same analysis. I can see performance in past months, performance over the year. I'll scroll up, quickly switch over to golf ops. So very quick and easy to jump between departments and really focus in on, performance essentially. As I continue to scroll down here, we created some metrics or some reports here that highlight for you departments that have potentially big swings or big variances compared to budget. So we could see here a few departments, some pretty big variances there, and for the year as well. Most of the departments are pretty much on par, but there's some departments trending well above. As we scroll down, comparison to prior year, similar metric there. And then as I keep going down, these reports will probably look familiar to you, familiar to what you might run or print out of your Jonas system or what you might be building in Excel today, where you just get your department breakdown, what you did for the month, your actuals there compared to budget, what your variances were, and then on the right side for the year, actuals, budget, variances. And then finally, as we continue to scroll down, here again we have the GL account. So not everybody will necessarily need this level of detail. I think certain individuals, maybe the controller, GM, might want to come in here and just see what's making up those numbers. So if we scroll up and we look at food and beverage, okay, that was our actuals. Well, how did we get there? If we scroll down here, we can see all of the accounts that contributed to that. your period debits and credits, as well as the ending balance, as well as budget there. And this is downloadable to Excel. All of our reports you can download to Excel. You can highlight, copy, paste, whatever's easier for you. So there we are. And so just before I move over to expenses, I'll just pause here for a second in case anybody on the panel would like to chime in on anything.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, just like to add that it's so powerful to have the visuals, or kind of taking a top-down approach on the visuals. And just want to share, like in our experience when we do strategic planning and work like that, sometimes we do even very simple things like bringing past 5 years and doing some charts and graphs, and it's amazing how impactful the visuals can be. So even to people who have very like financial or math oriented minds, there's something about looking at things visually that just sort of tell a different story and a different perspective. So it's just awesome to see it in this light and work down your way to the detail rather than the other way around, where people on the board or just stakeholders are used to seeing maybe a big sheet of financials or a budget with variances. It's sort of tells a different story to see it all visually. So it's just very very impactful.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'll jump over to expenses here. And you'll notice that the expenses dashboard looks very similar, but there's a key difference here. We start off the same. I'll select my company code. I'll choose my month. As I scroll down, again, very similar. Breakout by department, so expenses by department for the month. Oh, it's still loading there, sorry. For the month, and on the right for the year, so very similar. But here is where we take it a step further, and now we can show you your expense type. So you can see your breakdown for the club as a whole. But the cool thing is, we can see payroll here. If I select payroll, it will allow me to filter the dashboards here. And if I scroll back up, now I can get my department breakdown specifically for payroll. Okay, and vice versa. If I click on food and beverage here and scroll back down, I can get my expense type breakout specifically for the food and beverage department. Okay, so although the dashboards and reports are fairly standard, with the clicking and drilling, it really allows you to dig into, what if you're a specific department manager, or if you're just interested in a particular department, it really allows you to get in there. As we scroll down, similar report we saw before. Again, we're filtered on payroll and food and beverage. You can see we're trending well above budget there for the year. And then quickly, I can, let's do operating expenses. Just quickly make that change and see if generally for previous months we've done well, but for October, it looks like we did even better there. So, and as we scroll down, yep.
If I could just jump in there on the monthly breakout, it's so helpful for when you're presenting your budget financial performance past year. Sometimes people look at the yearly number and sort of miss the story, and it's so important for especially clubs that are seasonal, which all are, even if they're open all year or not, they're cyclical in the seasons. And it's sometimes if you get a jump with good weather at the start of the year, and it's so interesting to see how it tracks from one year to the next, to be able to sort of explain that or tell that story of why you're up for the year. Ultimately things weren't too different, but you just got an earlier start, or vice versa. You might have had a great year in the peak months and actually outperformed, but you got a later start, and it's just very impactful to see it in that way with the line charts of the different fiscal years.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. As we continue to scroll down here, we can see very similar to what we saw in the other dashboards, reports here that allow you to quickly identify departments that had large variances. You can see for the year, quite a few here. And then as we continue to scroll down, the breakout by expense type. And compared to last year. And then finally, again, very similar report to what you're used to looking at, the monthly breakout, where you are for the month, actuals versus budget, and then variance, and then same thing for the year. And so right now it's filtering on operating, but again, very quickly I can switch over to COGS. There we go. You'll see the department list will shrink there versus operating, or sorry, payroll, let's go to. And there we go. And all these columns are sortable. Like I said, you can download to Excel. So lots of flexibility there. And again, on this dashboard particularly, being able to see what accounts make up those totals that you're looking at become even more powerful here, because now you're doing another layer of drilling. Right now we're looking at payroll specifically for food and beverage, so it really lets you see what made up those numbers there. Okay, so just finish off here with this month, and I know we're running out of time here, so I want to be conscious of everyone's time. I mentioned the analysis is a little bit different on this dashboard. So we'll start off the same, where we can filter by company. I can filter by a particular department. But one of the key differences here is when we're comparing our actuals. So this one's looking at month-to-date revenue. When we're comparing our actuals to budget, here we're doing a prorated budget. So we get your budget for the month, and we divide that by the number of days in the month. And so this report is giving you month-to-date revenue as of end of day yesterday. And then you have a prorated budget to compare it to. And so as we scroll down through the dashboard, you'll see that theme continue, where we have month-to-date revenue again, this time broken out by department. In blue, we have your actuals. In orange, we have the prorated budget. And then we have the previous year, again, prorated as of end of day yesterday. Keep going. Then we get into expenses by department. Keep going further, expense type, so you can see payroll. Now, something I'll mention about payroll, the payroll data we're getting is coming from your GL account. So what we have is whatever your GL accounts have. So depending on the club, you know, that might be by pay period, or if you're bringing in your data from an external payroll system, just whenever you put that into Jonas, that's when we're going to get it as well. And then one last cool thing, just like we saw on the other dashboards here, if I click on food and beverage or whatever department I want to look at, again, it allows you to do that analysis specifically by that department, or vice versa. If I click on COGS, I can go back up and see my breakout by department as well. Okay, and then at the bottom here, there's a couple of really interesting ones here, daily revenue by day. Here, so we can see in the 5th and 6th this year, did quite a bit, quite a bit better than previous years. And then cumulative revenue as the month goes on here, trending well above budget. Well, maybe not well above, but above budget, and well above previous years. And so the one thing when looking at, you know, daily revenue, you know, okay, the 5th and 6th, okay, this year was a Friday, Saturday versus last year, you know, what days were those? So that's why we added in this chart as well, just to see how you're comparing by day of the week compared to previous years. And again, we can see this year, Fridays and Saturdays, definitely quite a bit better than previous years so far this month. All right, so I'll just check in with the panel in case they want to chime in just before I finish off.
No, I think that was a really good walkthrough there, Mark. I know we're up against time, and folks have been generous with their time already for sticking with us. Basically, you know, I think anybody on the line should be able to see the power behind these dashboards. especially when you can take them, you can throw them into a custom dashboard that's available just to your board of directors or to specific individuals at your club. You can give them access whenever they want. There's a lot of really great useful data here, and we do have a handful of questions. So let me just go ahead. I'll take back over on the sharing.
Great.
So I think you guys should be able to see my screen again now. So that's our MetricsFirst walkthrough of the financial dashboards. And obviously, we've spent a lot of time working closely with GGA Partners to determine what we believe are most important in this kind of initial phase of development of these dashboards. This is something that is going to be evolving over time. We're not stopping here. We have more data points we want to bring in and some more customization on some of the existing charts that you've seen. So we do have a few questions, and I'll